You know, it's almost like your birthday with a package from China, so let's go. And I just needed to pick it up to show you here on the channel what are we going to get. So we do have three different colors. We get white and the purple, or atomic purple they call this, or translucent purple, and the translucent black. And oh man, I need to get myself the purple one. It reminds me of the GameCube days somehow. I always loved, by the way, translucent, and I can tell you first impression that this thing looks pretty damn great. The way how it looks, but also how it feels, it does have a very nice weight to it. But all fun and game and good resolution is in 640 by 480. It's absolutely amazing. But what are we going to see when it comes to the overall performance, but also how it comes with the overall controls? This device has a very nice form factor when it comes to the thickness, but also the way how the buttons are placed. So first of all, I'm very glad they're putting the D-pad in the left top corner, because I am a D-pad guy and I mostly play with the D-pad. But when it comes to the touch, that was also like a very huge surprise. The form factor of the D-pad is quite nice. It doesn't have like a huge curve, but I must say that normally I really love when having a curve. But overall, when you're looking at the way how it feels, it got a very nice resistance, and I'm very satisfied with it. But when it comes to the games, also there we do have some surprising performance. There are actually a couple of things I want to mention. So first of all, I was quite positive about the way how it feels. But if you want to play a game like Contra and you need to point the gun to a certain direction, this works perfectly with this absolutely great D-pad. So with the D-pad works great for beat 'em ups, but also when it comes to a Contra game, the question remains, how does it work with fighting games? And I can tell you that I am surprised by it, just actually how good it works, and also for this particular kind of game style. But take consideration that you need to get used to the D-pad, especially when it comes to the touch itself. But we're still able to use the two joysticks over here. Both are similar to the Nintendo Switch in combination with the click underneath. Then in the middle we're going to find the select, start, and the FN button is basically mapped to the special menu if you want to make a quick load and quick save. With the ABXY button, I am personally not the biggest fan of these things because they are so tiny. We have seen devices with bigger buttons and they are so much more comfortable most of the time. Unfortunately, this is something we do see a lot on these devices, but when it comes to the overall touch, I must say they don't feel really bad. I have seen myself some really horrible ABXY buttons, and these were not bad, especially when you're looking at the money you're paying for this device. I would not say this is going to be a big disappointment, but when it comes to over here, the speaker in the middle, it's only one speaker, and I personally prefer to have two of them to get the best audio experience, especially when it comes to the stereo effect. So that's basically the front part of the device. At the bottom we're going to get two Type-Cs, one for charging and one is an OTG port, and a headphone port at the bottom part. So at the left we're going to get the on-off switch, a reset, and here we can find the SD card number 2. The consideration, and this is actually in 64 GB, there are different sizes, but they're using non-branded. And they are not great because they can get corrupted out of nothing. At the right we're going to find a physical volume control, because in the past we have seen they are not implementing this in devices, but they did with this particular model. I'm very glad because it works very well. And then we're going to have the SD card, and this is the firmware with a special seal, yep, a quality seal, but they are mostly using the same crappy SD cards. And last but not least, then we're going to see at the back a very nice configuration of 4 buttons. But the thing is, what I don't like about these things is that you need to press them very hard. In the inside you can already see that they are basically touching the micro switch underneath directly. There's no membrane, so you don't have very nice feedback. So you're just going to get and click instantly, and you need to put some pressure on it. Another thing I don't like at all, so when you're looking closely, there are some minor differences in the height. It's very difficult to capture on the camera, but it is very minor. And when you're actually holding it, I find it always quite difficult to get in touch with all of the buttons at the back. So when it comes to this configuration, it's not the best that they made with these devices. Another cool thing that you don't see very often with these devices, they can remove the back cover. Here you can get into the battery compartment and just remove it fairly easy. And this is absolutely an amazing overall great thing they did. They didn't showcase this over here what kind of milliamp this thing is, but then you can replace it. That is absolutely great. But most of the time you need to open up these things, and if you don't have any screwdrivers laying around, it's going to be a hassle replacing the battery. But let's give this thing a boot. And with the boot you will see already in the first loading screen of the R36s. So it has a similar Emulation piece of software on it, only modified. This is called the Arc OS 2.0. The bezel on the display, I must say, or around the display I need to say, is not bad at all. So let's remove this piece of plastic, and the front glass is kind of glossy, but the overall quality is not bad at all. It's not your typical front glass, the piece of plastic that we have with the cheaper devices. So those are one of the parts I really love. But one of the key features we're having nowadays with these cheaper devices, that we're going to just have a beautiful IPS panel in the inside. And you can just see it. Maybe in the future it would be fun to do a comparison with all the other models, but I'm very surprised and very glad to see this. It's quite difficult to capture because of the glossy front glass, but I can tell you it looks pretty nice. Specification wise, it's quite an interesting piece of hardware. 3.5-inch display, it's absolutely a beautiful display with a resolution of 640 by 480. The CPU is a Rockchip 3326 64 bits. That is actually in quad-core Cortex A35 running on 1.5 GHz. Maximum memory 256 GB, 8 watt power of the speaker, and it sounds pretty damn nice. And the battery is 3500 mAh, gives you around 8 hours of game time and needs a 2 hour for a charge. Another feature I think is pretty damn cool when it comes to these devices, you can get into the settings menu, and over here we can mess around with the UI if you want to switch to a different or update or download a new one. There is so much things you can change out. Display option has been set to 50%, and I'm just going to believe it's going to be slightly, let's say, better to record. But nevertheless, it's quite interesting to see how much you can mess around with it, and including for the emulators. If you have any problems, you can just switch between emulators. Here you can see everything has been configured with this particular model, but I already say, like, if you need to mess around with it because some of the emulators doesn't run great, and that is the option you don't have with a lot of cheap devices, is that we do have all kinds of emulation possibilities. Take consideration PlayStation Portable, and when it comes to the interface, it works pretty damn great. So first of all, some of the, let's say, game lists have been configured like this. You can just change it out by pressing start, and here we can mess around with the general settings. By pressing select, here we do have more options where we can jump to a certain ladder very easily like that. Or if you just want to go into sorting the games by fail an extension, or you want to have a different kind of configuration. Next up, we do have the grid size list. Here we can put it in different kind of, let's say, sizes, or the game viewing as, for example, basic, where we're just having a different list. Or if you want to see in details, you can just do it like this and having certain details. What I personally was one of my favorite ways to display all of the games. First off, let's start with some PlayStation Portable. You will see that there are actually some problems with the emulation performance. You will find some hiccups here and there. Let's hold the device differently. All the buttons have been configured correctly. Here we can even make a quick load, quick save. And what I just did is pressing both of the joysticks. So one of the cool ways you can mess around with it, you get into the settings. Oh, pressing the wrong button. Getting in here, we have the option to mess around. Already has been set to frame skip 1. This device is not really powerful, so a lot of tweaks have been implemented to get some of the games actually running. So one of the issues I've noticed a lot with PlayStation, it's not the overall bad emulation performance, no, it's actually pretty great on this. But the downside to these devices is that they are putting files on here, or you accidentally like ripping your files wrong and you don't have any audio whatsoever. Doesn't matter for this review, I just wanted to showcase how fast it loads and actually also what you can play. The thing is, like, you don't have any background music, so the soul of the game is absolutely gone. Loading times are of course significantly faster than when you're having the official game on your PlayStation. But the performance is absolutely great. All the buttons have been mapped perfectly. But I don't find it really pleasant to play this game with the really very strange back buttons. But let's get into a different game, because this game does have audio in the background. But the overall performance for PlayStation is great, and I can tell you that it's finally one of those many devices that they released that we can finally just enjoy some old school Tekken or other games from your library. On the go. Come on. Oh, that guy is so freaking annoying. Oh, now it blocks everything. Ow. Seriously, I'm going to lose this. Ooh, almost a double KO here. But let's move on to some new Geo Arcade gaming. And the overall performance is pretty damn great on this. If you just want to play some old school games, this is just more than enough. The only problem with my is I need to find the buttons I need to use. You will switch to the analog stick if you want to. And of course the right joystick doesn't do anything with this particular game. Another system I would love to try is some Sega Game Gear, the stuff that I personally also grew up with. Let me know in the comments, did you grow up with a Game Gear or do you have something else? I do read that some people have an Atari Lynx or a Game Boy like me. Pretty damn awesome to hear that a lot of people have experienced these games back in the day. So one of the things I find so pleasant to play with this thing is just the D-pad. I've noticed with fighting games, you can navigate so easily and very pleasant through the game. So the inputs when it comes to that are absolutely great. The same goes for the emulation performance. But if you want to get into the Nintendo DS, I don't really know if this is actually the way how you want to play. Simply because some of the games here you can see that it runs pretty good. But pressing the shoulder button at the back, here we can switch between the single and the dual screen and they're going to get really tiny. Next up we can switch between both of the displays if you need to, but of course the bottom part was touch. So you need to mess around with the stylus like this. I personally don't like this at all. Let me know in the comments, do you really prefer to play the game like this? I would rather to get myself an original Nintendo DS and just play it like that. I just want to give you an example of what you're going to see in the emulation of the N64. Cruising USA is actually in quite a nice benchmark because not a lot of stuff will actually run this perfectly or at a decent frame rate, so we can just enjoy this old school classic one. But besides that, it is running really bad. This is a great example of the micro switch joystick at the back or thumb drive. Oh man, it's really difficult to actually play this game. Even when it's running on normal speed, the shoulder buttons are or the back buttons are so difficult to actually use in this device. It's really annoying. You do get a lot of performance for not a lot of money. The form factor of this device is absolutely amazing, where I'm very happy with the D-pad, it plays great. The back buttons, that's not great to be honest, that's something these should improve in the next model. And of course when it comes to the tiny speaker at the front. It's front facing, it sounds good, but I personally prefer to have two to get, in my opinion, a better audio experience. The display looks amazing, and the emulation performance, we have the same thing, but we have the cheaper devices. And 64 and PlayStation Portable have a lot of problems, including Dreamcast. Nevertheless, it's a great piece for your money when you're checking out the specs and everything you need to pay for it. Thank you all for watching, consider subscribing, hit the little bell, and it would be great to see you in the next video.